Morning, everybody, and welcome to ESO Daily. I'm your host, Mr. Craven. All right, summer sets out. I still have a lot of builds to do, but today, as it's getting closer, it's already launched for PC. So I already got to do like stamina penetration about 2 weeks ago, and I was like, I didn't get around to the Magicka. So I need to do that, especially for console players that may not have, add-ons. PC, they do have some add-ons that will help with that. But today I'll go over that. How much penetration does a Magicka user need to acquire? Where do you get it? And, all of that good stuff. So you're going to see, like, I have everything set up so I can do my handy-dandy calculator. It's kind of very important because we need to break things down and everything as much as possible. So first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is pop up this nice little calculator, right? The first thing that we're going to remember at all times is the 18,200. 18,200. It's important because most bosses will have, all bosses, I don't think there is a boss that really has anything under this, but 18,200 is where we need to push our penetration value without trying to exceed or trying to be under too much, because if you're under or you're over, you lose DPS, right? Tooltip is not a reflection of how much damage you're doing. A tooltip is a reflection of how much damage you could potentially do to base, right? Very important. Can't stress that enough. So just heads up. Now, first thing I want to go ahead and do now that we've established how much we need, morning Robert, is how much do we already have, how much is going to be applied, and how much we're going to need to make up the difference. Okay, so the first thing I need to establish is how much penetration I have. Now, magic users already have penetrating values in their passives, unlike stamina users. Stamina users have to acquire all of their penetration. Magic users do not, right? Why? Why don't the Magicka users need to acquire as much penetration as stamina users? Well, that's simple. It's because of the light armor passive concentration. So you're going to see that my penetrating value is 4,884, right? That's a chunk of penetration. But stamina users do not get that. Instead, they get agility, right, which increases their weapon damage. Okay, so first thing that we can automatically do is just go to the handy dandy calculator and deduct the 4,884. Okay, so that leaves us 13,316 that has to be applied or made up. So there are also going to be some applications to this as well. Why? Because tanks will taunt, right? So when we go to puncture and we morph it to pierce, we already know that major breach is going to be applied to the taunt. If this is used, it should be used. And that's an additional 5,280 deduction. So we can deduct that. I'm just keeping it as simple as possible. Now we only need 8,036. Now, stamina Stamplars will also apply Power of Light on target. That's an additional 1,300 off with minor breach, right? So we can take that off. We can subtract that. So we subtract an additional 1,300. Okay? So now we're at 6,736. Now, Crusher Enchantment also is another applied effect that's going to be deducted, right? So very, 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 very important that that's also going to be applied. Now, Crusher will depend. If you go max, it's 21. If they go in the light end, it's 1,600, something like that. I always usually bank on low end, then high end. Why? You never know. So I always bank on the low end scale. So let's say 1,600 for a Crusher on the low end. So 5,136. But there's also another set that we have to take into consideration for trials, not necessarily dungeons. So if we're in a trial scenario, the first other set we're going to be looking at is the Roar of Alkosh. So when I go into this, I go into the medium armor set, and I go into the Roar of Alkosh. I'm going to pull out the Roar of Alkosh jacket and take a look at the deducted value for the Roar of Alkosh. Now, the Roar of Alkosh, now this will scale up. I want to say it's like 3,200. Right now it's 29 or 31 or something. But let's just say I'll gold it up really quick. We'll find out. I want to say it's like 32. If I have a clothing station. Let's hope, let's hope, let's hope. I do. Okay. All right. Now let's go back in here. Take a look at that Roar of Alkosh. 3,000. We'll just say 3,000. It's fine. I think it's 3,100 though, with all gold. So let's just deduct an additional 3,000. Just to be on the safe side. So that's 2,136, right? Very important to remember is that number now. Now, stamina users have to make up a lot more, but remember, concentration is one of the passives that, you know, give us the ability to be a lot more lenient with our penetrating value. Okay, so 2,136. Now, the first thing I always take a look at are penetrating sets, right? So one of the penetrating sets that we have available for Magic users is the spinner set. So when I come into the spinner set and I take a look, we have a 3,329 spell penetration. Now, for a dungeon, this may be good, but for a trial scenario, it will be an over-penetrated value. Okay? Why is it going to be good necessary for a dungeon rather than trial? Simple. Because not everybody has these deductions. If I don't have a Stamplar in a vet dungeon, I'm missing 1,300. If I don't have somebody with Alkosh, I'm missing 3,000. So you see where it goes. So in vet dungeons, this is very good set because we have enough penetration. It makes up the difference of the penetration we may be losing, right? But in trial scenario, when all the debuffs are applied on top of the equivalent of the amount that's calculated, morning Calvin, hope all is well with you too. When we have enough penetration, now we're exceeding penetrating value, and thus we're losing DPS. So this would be an over-penetration to our value. Now, a lot of people would be like, well, we'd use the lover. That's great, but if you run all divines, you could be over-penetrating. Now, I'm running all divines. I don't have the monster set right now on, so but I'll show you what we're at. So we're going to use the lover. Okay, I'm going to get monster set and get those divines on. So, supplies, monster. Okay. I'm a huge Valken player. I think it's funny that a couple of players are now putting Valken scoring on their blades. Cool deal. Congratulations. You guys caught up. All right. So, we're all divine. So, what's our penetration now? Right? That becomes a good question. We're at 4,059. That is way excessive. That is beyond excessive, actually. Right? We can modify it. Right? We can do that. You can modify the divine value. Right? You can. But we might not want to. Why? Because now we can go ahead instead and take the apprentice. So instead of taking that 4,000, which is very excessive. So say once again, I'm in a 4-man. I'm in a 4-man. I'm once again, if I'm not using a penetration value set like spinners, this will become prominent. If I am using spinners, I would definitely want to take something like the apprentice, right? Because penetration value is very important. But now, since we're back without that penetration, only amount that we're still needing to make up is the 2001. We can do that in the CP points. So when I go to the champion points, I could take a look at what? Spell erosion for optimization. So the amount I need is 21. Now I'm slightly over, and that's an acceptable loss because I'm anticipating. Even if they want to go with like the infused, I can scale that down just a little bit, around 21 points. And then I can bring up all the other values accordingly. So I want to go 1208, bring up that base damage, and I will go over more in depth and different values at a later point. I can afford to probably go up to about 14%. Okay, staff expert. We'll go with our direct. Should be able to be about 21. 22. A little off my game today. Then I could stack a lot more points in the thaumaturs given the fact that we have dots. 19. Oh my god, look at that. Oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. That's so pretty. And now we're sitting at a very, very nice cushion with our spell erosion, given the fact that even if the infused trait will push over to the 21, we're at a minimal loss due to over-penetrating value. We're minimizing the loss occurred and optimizing towards the full potential of the specifications. Very, very important. Very important. So as you can see, now I've already hit that. So when I come over into my calculator and I put that 1984, we're only at 1,000 into over penetration. No, it should. Did I add that wrong? Hold on. Okay, so let's do it all over again. 18,200. That's why you always double check your math, boys and girls. Okay. Deduct 4,884. Up. 4,884. Deduct 5,280. Deduct 1,300. Deduct 1,600, low scale. Once again, it can go higher. Deduct 3,000 for the Roar of Alkosh. And deduct 1984, right. 1984. Bingo! 152. I thought I might have hit a wrong button. 152. That is just pearl right there for me in a trial scenario. It's pearl. It's like, you know, it's like good as crap. That's how much closure we need. Right? We got to take a look at those values. So, once again, the Roar of Alkosh, big importance, right? For the trial scenario. Because if we don't have the Roar of Alkosh, so let's say we add the 1984 back, right? And we, once again, add back that 3,000. Because that's the Roar of Alkosh. Because in a 4-man, we might not have that. Right? And then we also add on top of it the minor breach. Right? Which is 1,300. That's 6,436 even with major breach and crushers applied. That has to be made up in a 4-man. So sets and munduses will differ. So now, let's say I'm in a 4-man and I anticipate that that's the value I need. Well, then, only thing I have to do is switch out the Mundus, right? So I could go from the apprentice now to the lover. We hit up that, and now we take a look at the Mundus's value, which is 4,059. So now when we go into this, now we deduct that 4,059. And now we're at 2,377. Now, do we have to change our champion points around? Not necessarily, because remember, we put a low end on the Crusher of 1,600. So once again, we're going to take that 1984 off. So once again, deduct 1984. And we're at 393. It's marginal, but still within specifications. So that's why I always tell you, depending on 4-man or trial, depending on your configuration, the only thing you have to change for a Magicka user is the Mundus. It's the Mundus. That's it. That's why I always build to certain specifications, because I anticipate the value accordingly, right? Every day, that's what I have to do. And that's what you should do. When you're coming up with your own builds, the only thing you want to take into consideration is that Magicka users already have a penetrated value assigned, right? That's just it. Once the light armor, it's an assigned value, right? It's fixed. This is a fixed value. So it's not, you know, it's already associated. Just that simple. So that's the only thing you got to keep in mind versus stamina. Stamina does not have that association, you know, that the Magicka users have. So in Somerset, it doesn't change. The only thing, the question that you have to ask yourself is, where do I get the penetration and how much do I need between stamina and Magicka? Stamina is a 10,000, right? Magicka is like more like 6,000. Why? Because of the 4,884. Okay, so that's the difference. Just that simple. So stamina has to have maybe a penetration value set where Magicka doesn't. Now Magicka, if I wanted to, what I could do is also use the set like spinners. So if I use the spinner set, right, I would deduct that value, and I can now afford to use the Mage or the Apprentice Mundus and recalculate what? My CP system. So we can get in a different value to occur based on specification. Okay? So once again, a lot of options in this game. You just have to know how to make up the difference. It's just that simple. Once you understand that you can make up values, you're better off. Now, a lot of people ask me, what about sharpen trait? Can you use sharpen trait? Absolutely. The problem only of it is when you go on a trial, right? Sharpen is fixed value, and Nirnhone is a scaling percentage value off of your max spell damage. So the more max spell damage you have at base prior to applying Nirnhone, then what ends up happening when you apply Nirnhone, the percentage value will scale, like Slayer. Slayer does really kind of questionable up until all buffs are applied. But then when you get Warhorn and all buffs are applied, its ceiling cap is higher. Right? That's when Slayer is more optimized, when all buffs and Warhorn are applied. Right? That is when it's optimized, because it has a higher ceiling cap. Percentage value on that applies to carry over the up to the ceiling cap. But you can't go from the reflection of tooltip. So a lot of people will ignore that. They'll ignore penetrating value to what? Get specification from tooltip. But tooltip is not a reflection of damage going to be dealt. It is a reflection of maximum amount of base damage can be done without crit, because critical value will apply after this. So I cannot exceed a base of 7,436. I cannot exceed that without other additives or buffs to scale the tooltip. Okay, so the tooltip is not a reflection of damage done. It is a reflection of base amount, potential base amount. So when you're scaling tooltip, you can get tooltip up to 12,000. Will you hit it? More than likely no, if you have no penetration. Okay? Just that simple. It's just that simple. Okay? So once again, I just wanted to do a quick video on this, kind of go over it and show people and illustrate what's going on, how do you acquire it, where can you acquire it. You know, I know a lot of people, I always try to teach you guys about in different curves, diminishing returns, and of course, penetrating values. These are numbers that have to be understood in this game. Why? Because it comes from a mathematical standpoint to say, okay, if I'm at this point of penetration, then how much damage can I gain if or lose depending on said target's resistance? Or how much does tooltip reflect my potential damage output? And that's very important. So once again, I'm not going to do clickbait or do anything whatever. I want to keep it as simple as possible so players can make those adjustments accordingly on their own based on their own builds or setups. Okay? So there it is. There you have it. Once again, I want to thank all of you guys. Thank you all for all your support. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log in. I didn't get to play on Somerset yesterday a lot because my internet went down. We had a bad storm. So I'm hoping to jump on today and get that done. But if anybody has any questions or comments, especially when it comes to penetration in with Magicka users, please leave a comment below. I want to thank you guys for watching. And once again, I'm Mr. Craven, this CSO Daily. And as always, thank you and have a nice day.